What up, everybody? It's your boy, DFSUpNorth, aka Josh Thomas, here with another 10 under 10 DFS football, NFL football podcast where I tell you my 10 favorite plays under 5% or under 5% owned, under 10% owned, 5 on DraftKings, 5 on FanDuel to help you take down a GPP this week. We got week 5, baby. Let's go. It is crazy to think that we are already in week 5. It's a weird slate this week, guys. All right. We are on a weird sort of 10 gamer here. Lots of my typical favorite guys are not here this week. Sammy Darnold is playing the London game on Sunday morning. Baker Mayfield is playing tonight, Thursday Night Football. Even, like a Kirk Cousins that you might get involved in, or a Drake London. So there's not, my sort of favorite value plays out there. So I really had to dig deep this week to talk about who I like. And we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here, folks. It is, like I said, it's an interesting week. And here's the thing that I really do need to mention too, is that ownership is going to change throughout the week, right? There's no guarantees that, an injury might occur. Things might happen where a guy that looks like a great, GPP play ends up becoming the chalk. It's Thursday, things like that happen. And we see major swings all the way into Sunday morning. So one of the reasons why I think that you need to become a DFS Army VIP is that we cover all of this in our VIP Discord for all of our amazing DFS Army members. So if you are not a DFS Army VIP, we have one of the best specials that we've ever had. Let me scroll down here and try to find it. 50% off your first month with the code VIP 50. All right, so 50% off. And look, you can even get a little sneak peek to who I'm on here this week. So before we get into week 5 and all the goodness that we have to offer, remember my motto is first or last. We ain't here to min cash. But week 4 recap, we had some bangers. But we also had some duds, as is the case. And let me mention this. This is a free article on DFSArmy.com. There is some DFS aggregator that collects, sites plays and ranks people. And that's for some reason they are ranking this article as like maybe DFS Army's sort of sole entrant. And I think it's important to remember that this is the value GPP punt plays that are projecting under 10% owned. So my ranking in there, not that great, but let's remember that we're trying to rank people that are all under, or write up people that are all under 10% owned. So not always going to be a smash. I mean, if I did with that would be like something I'd be shouting at the rooftops and beating all these people who are, not restricted by ownership. But last week, like I said, a couple of hits. Sam Darnold, right? Big believer in the Vikings. I think that he's going to continue to be a smash play. And if they continue to underprice him, we are going to be all over him. Brian Robinson Jr. went from 2% owned to 20% owned, like I was talking about there with Austin Eckler out. Now he's hurt, so now Austin Eckler might be that same guy this week that goes from projected initial low ownership to highly expensive. But both those guys returned almost 4x value, which is a smash. And what we are looking for, the 3 wide receivers on DraftKings were okay, right? Drake London, DJ Moore, T. Higgins. None of them like killed you, but they didn't do anything for you either. So all guys that I think I will go back to, because that's something that I think is an important concept in DFS, is that if guys are showing signs, we need to go back to them even when they don't pop off, because at some point they're likely going to do it. We hit the one of the best quarterbacks on the slate in Baker Mayfield, QB3. Derek Carr, I have apparently now I have given up on the Clint Kubiak offense, so I will not be going back there. Zach Moss was okay. For some reason, they decided to just go with the Chase Brown show against the Panthers. Shakir, the volume that had been there all along. The Buffalo Bills looked terrible against the Ravens on Sunday night. And then my boy Tommy Tremble took me as 0. But here's the deal. Tight end, I think this year, tight end does not matter. It literally doesn't matter. It is such a wasteland that I will just, you might not win, but you are going to place highly with 3 or 4 points at your tight end spot most weeks. So ideally what we're looking for is the cheapest viable option, and I've got one of those for you guys this week. Let's get into week 5, baby. Let's go. Week 5. All right. I mean, people are going to smarten up, right? People are going to smarten up. They have to. I'm not convinced that they will forever keep this ownership here. I'm just pulling up in the background to see if we've had any sort of update on ownership, but Josh Allen cannot be single digit owned. Like he can't. That's not right. Like I get that he and the offense looked pretty bad. Pretty bad last week against the Ravens, but if there was ever a get right spot, it is right now, right? Like Josh Allen off of a dud is about as smash play as you can get. So if they're going to let us get to Sunday with him still at single digit ownership, I might just click him into all of my lineups. And like that's not a joke. I legitimately might click him into all of my lineups. Because there's enough value on the slate, especially if you play the tight end that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, that you can afford him. So I'm going to get into it here. Okay, so I have him written up. So yesterday when we wrote this, it was 2.92%. He's currently at 4.95. That is still like 4 to 5x too low. Easily 4 to 5x too low. In a potential shootout against the Texans, man, like don't let us do this here. I'm not letting one dud get me off of him. I love Allen. Stack him up with Shakir or Dalton Kincaid. Those are the two best options. The rest of the guys, I really don't have much interest in. Maybe if you want to get silly for the mill, you throw at Dawson Knox and hope he catches a touchdown. But Kincaid and Shakir are the guys here. Smash. Like you have to play. Like, oh, I also wrote in here, maybe Oz the Mentalist really messed him up. If you guys haven't watched that yet, go on TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Find Oz. Like I could sit for hours and watch Oz the Mentalist and these NFL teams or College Game Day or whatever. Like that guy is insane. Like I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know. I watch his videos and I am at a loss for words. You know, like sometimes you can sort of figure it out. Man, he is a guy that I cannot figure out. Antonio Gibson. Let's go. All right. So I have a couple of running backs listed here this week that are backups essentially and are trending towards potentially getting starting roles. So Antonio Gibson is the backup to Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is a stud, but Stevenson's been fumbling the ball. 4 fumbles, 4 games. And that's an issue, right? So Gerard Mayo has said that there's the potential that Antonio Gibson starts here. I think that regardless, Antonio Gibson gets some work. All right. The Dolphins are pretty thick up the middle. And Stevenson's a good pass catcher. He can get outside, but I just think that the sort of game flow and skill set that the game flow that it's going to be and the skill set that Antonio Gibson brings to the table is intriguing. All right. I think that he's going to get a little bit more run here. He's a great pass catcher. So even if it doesn't come out that he's going to start the game, I do think that Antonio Gibson's a great value at $5,100 and only currently 2% owned. Next up, my boy, Brian Thomas Jr. I would go so far to say that I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is the best rookie wide receiver out there. I think that when it's all said and done, he will be. All right. 7% owned, 6 catches, 86 in a TD last week. I think that he's the alpha here now. People are going to flock to Christian Kirk, things like that. I think Christian Kirk is going to get traded at some point, especially if they lose this week. They are going to continue to feed Thomas the ball. I think that the Jags get off the schneid this week. I think they win for the first time in 13, 14 games. And I think that Thomas has another big one against this awful Indianapolis Colts secondary. Then we've got my boy, Romeo Doubs. All right. So Doubs is the third wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Really, though, I think that you can consider any of these guys the number one. And with Christian Watson going down, we saw last week that Dontavian Wicks got a little bit more work. And now Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed are both trending higher percent owned than Romeo Doubs. Doubs is that correlated leverage here, right? That we get the Jaden Reed chalk and the Jordan Love chalk, which is fine. We want that, right? But I think that Doubs is the guy that could potentially pop off in this offense at low single-digit ownership. We get a little leverage on all the chalk. He's got great history with Jordan Love. I think that comes into play here this week in a game that should be a good one. All right. I love the Green Bay Packers defense in this game. I love Dobbs as well. So again, a cheap wide receiver that has some, I think, multiple TD upside, which is what we are shooting for here. And then finally, I talked about that cheap tight end. Eric All Jr., Cincinnati Bengals, outsnapped Mike Gesicki finally last week by 18. Tight end's a wasteland. I've said that time and time again. He is mega cheap. He's probably going to end up a lot chalkier than what we are projecting here currently. But again, I just think that the cheap chalk tight end is not the end of the world, especially at this price tag. We got him at 4.18%. What do I have him? The last update was 4.18%. Let me see what it is on here. It actually went down, which is weird. But yeah, like he got what? He's had 4 targets each game from Burrow. He's a stud. He's going to be a guy. 2,700 is mega cheap. It lets you do with whatever you want with your lineup. And it's essentially a free square here. And even better that it's super cheap. I don't foresee us having a tight end break the slate for a while. I mean, potentially all year. I don't see it happening. We haven't had that sort of, I mean, I think at some point maybe Kelsey does, but so many of these good tight ends play in island games, right? So on the main slate, I am looking for the cheapest tight ends available. 4 to 5 points. If I get a touchdown, you're looking at a real chance in some GPP. So that is on DraftKings. Let's flip the switch over to FanDuel. Before I do, reminder, you want to become a million maker, a winner like my boy Bobby. Wow, shout out to Bobby. Use that code VIP50. You want to give me some love, you can use 10 up north. It gets you 10% off for life. But if you want 50% off first month just to try it, you want to use that code VIP50. All right. It is tough. Quarterback is tough sledding this week. All right. I think Josh Allen is a fantastic play on FanDuel as well. But I'm digging deep and I'm going to play some Bo Nix this week. All right. And let me try to talk you into it. All right. I think that, he struggled last week on the road against the Jets, but we've seen flashes from Nix. All right. We've seen him pop off with the running game. He can throw the ball. He gets the Raiders. Not good, right? We saw Andy Dalton absolutely destroy them. There's some intrigue here for him to put up a big score as one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the slate on FanDuel. 1% owned. You pair him up with Cortland Sutton, and then you just play a bunch of the chalk studs from the other game. I am intrigued here. I think that there is some definite value in Bo Nix, right? We could get a running TD. No Max Crosby. No Devontae Adams on the other side of the ball, right? There's just something about this spot for Bo Nix at home against the Raiders. Could be sneaky, all right? And on the other side of the ball, another backup that is averaging 5 yards per game in Alexander Madison, which is just a wild number. And Antonio Pierce has said that Madison is going to get the carries. He deserves them. Like, he could pop off at, sub 1% ownership, right? He deserves more carries. He's going to get them. I said that in here. Tough sledding against the Broncos, but they're not like they're not elite, right? They're good. They're a good run defense. And you're talking about a backup here, but what if, we get the two-tutty game from Alexander Madison here? Break the slate, win the game, right? So I don't hate the former Viking. All right, another cheapie. I said we're getting deep here. Is Greg Dortch, 1% owned, FanDuel, 5,200. He's talking, same amount of receptions as Marvin Harrison this year with 15. His ADOT is obviously quite a bit shorter. But against this tougher 49ers D, who have some guys that can go deep with Marvin Harrison Jr., I think we can see Dortch get peppered here, especially in the red zone. So a guy that I think has multiple TD upside, never a bad idea to target a cheap fantasy receiver, and the highest total on the slate is my thoughts on ya boy Greg Dortch. And then we got Jalen Tolbert. All right, Brandon Cooks is out. Tolbert's the clear-cut number 2. We get the late game hammer, right? It's a tough matchup. Don't get me wrong here, but Tolbert's looked kind of electric every time he's had the ball. So I really like this kid. I think he's going to be establish himself as the real number 2 with CeeDee Lamb. And if the Steelers are trying to bracket CeeDee Lamb and cover him, maybe Tolbert gets a little bit more work here. And then finally, Jawan Jennings. Everybody, last week again, led the team in receptions, led the team in targets. Ayuk and Samuel are back. Kittle's back. I get it. But don't sleep on your boy Jawan Jennings. Brock Purdy loves him. He is cheap. I don't think we're going to get the 3 TD game, but if you're looking to plug and play a cheap receiver that can maybe get you over the top in a GPP, I really like a guy like Jawan Jennings here. So as a reminder, these guys are low owned for a reason. We know that chalk is chalk for a reason, but get involved with don't play all these guys in the same lineup. I find myself doing that sometimes, right? Because I make content and I like it, but spread them out. A plug and play here. It's not saying that you have to play low owned guys everywhere, but you're playing in a big GPP. There's nothing wrong with that. And as always, use that code VIP50 for 50% off. All right, that will do it for me this week. I appreciate all of you. I hope that you guys have a fantastic week 5. I love content up for the Vikings showdown. My boys in London. Sunday morning game, we'll have Sunday night game, Monday night. We got it all covered for you guys. You know how we do over at DFS Army. Use that code VIP50. You get 50% off first month. Peace, guys.